9:30. Let's do this. It's KCIM Sports Rewind. We've assembled an all-star panel today for KCIM Sports Rewind. Not that, Jeff Blankman and Casey Miners are not impressive people, but, we're brought in the big guns today.
Yes. Legendary status, right?
I would say legendary status. You don't teach 42 years without becoming a legend. And he's a Boston Celtics fan, which proves he's got good taste.
Yeah, and he has probably seen almost everybody play.
Yeah.
I've been almost everywhere over the years, right?
I think we've invited him on today to talk about the high school career of one Casey Miners.
wasn't very good.
Well, you got to remember, you were on the all-star ballot for wiffle ball.
Huh?
Definitely.
All-star. Wow, that's impressive. You didn't put that on your resume, Casey.
I should have.
We've got Bill Baddley, Carroll High School PE teacher for 42 years. You hung it up back in 2021, but still out there coaching, Bill. Why do you keep coming back to coach and do things like that?
People ask me that, and simply, sports is a wonderful part of life. And it's just fun to coach and compete and work with the kids, work with the athletes.
I can't imagine 42 years of working with high school kids. Just the changes that you saw. You're not here to talk about that, but I'm just curious.
Well, the games, the strategies in the game, techniques for coaching, it's ever changing. I guess you'd say you're practicing all the time, but it's the people that make it, and people make it fun. Competition makes it fun. It's just something you look forward to, and
the whole town does. I mean, for a lot of these sports and things like that, it's crazy.
Well, you guys know this, but we're blessed. Carroll is a sports town. There are towns and communities in every state that are great communities, but they're not sports towns. But our city is a sports town, and people know what's going on with sports.
So here's a question I always ask somebody who's has seen athletes from many decades kind of come through, especially in basketball. Because we had Dan Pomeroy. He was on one time, and we asked him, you take a team from the great teams from the 70s, like some of the won state championships from Kemper and things like that, and compare them to the teams of today. Do you think that they match up equally, or who do you think would win in those circumstances?
Oh, man, that's a tough question. It's a tough answer. Because the game and the style of athlete is it's just different. Today's basketball game. Let's go with basketball right now because we're in that season. Basketball, the game is more centered on perimeter shooting, 3-point. You're talking the 70s, very early 80s. There was no 3-point stripe, and it was more of a power game. Inside, and then you'd kick it out to your perimeter shooters, and even the past year evolution of the shot clock in high school basketball has changed it. So it's tough, but every generation, every decade, a different style player. And
the weights have made a huge difference. I remember talking to Floyd Foreman years ago. He goes, man, when I played, he was a lineman in college football.
Not a very big guy.
We didn't really touch the weights all that much at all.
Right. Yeah.
So now, just the athleticism and the weight ability of these athletes these days is just incredible.
Well, you look around the state, and you look at the high schools, and you look at newly built schools. And there are weight rooms that are just amazing. You go to Waukee and you look at their weight rooms, and they'll rival any college, university weight room. In fact, they're probably better than a lot of small colleges.
Right.
And you need weight programs to compete anymore in athletics.
Is that where Harlan kind of excelled first? They were always so dominant in football. Was it the weight program, or what was it about that?
I don't know. Coaching. Yeah, I agree with Casey on that. I think coaching was probably part of it, but Bill, you seen those teams. Were they just physically different than everybody else?
Well, I think Harlan was a little bit ahead of their time, and I might be a little off in some of the particulars. But when Harlan, my understanding, when Harlan took in all those little communities, they made a promise to their people that they would be able to get the kids back home in time for evening meals and help around the house and the farm, whatever. So the last period of the day was an activity period. If you were an athlete, you had practice.
Right.
If you were a student, you had study hall. And that went across the board, junior high on up. And they even ran shuttle buses after practice out to those small towns.
That I did not know.
I didn't either.
And they have, my understanding, past few years they've dropped that little extra perk of taking shuttle buses back out, and I've been told that has hurt their numbers as far as participation in some of the younger grades.
Yeah.
Now that's secondhand information,
right?
But I consider it to be pretty.
Hey, we're all about rumor and secondhand information.
That's a genius way to do it, though. You think about it. I mean, you get more kids, especially farm kids, that are able to participate because they're not able. And in today's society, we struggle so much in almost every sport for numbers.
Right.
You know, part of that in our areas is our communities are getting smaller and the schools are getting smaller. But you know, there's hardly a sport that I cover anymore right now that we don't have struggle for numbers.
Yeah. Well, I think like Bill was saying, I remember the kid at Iowa Central that went to school in Wisconsin. He played football, and they had 2 activity periods a day, with one right away in the morning and one in the last period, so they could practice, lift weights in the morning, and they had practice that night in that last period. And he said they won 3 state titles, so it must have worked for them. So
I can hear some people out there going, "Oh, do we bring that back sometime?" Or,
yeah, and then you hear the education people going, "It's about the education. It's not about playing and winning in sports." I think
they might have started earlier in the day.
Yeah, I ain't getting involved in that conversation.
I'm not either. I'll just say that both are very important.
All right, so you're here to talk about an event, and we're going to get to that in just a minute, Bill, but we're going to do a trivia question here, so you're included with this one. The big news, and we'll talk about this again here when we get done talking about yours, but all the coaches that are out and retired, Nick Saban's out, Bill Belichick's out, Pete Carroll was also out, and he moves up into the front office for the Seattle Seahawks.
Right.
So Pete Carroll is one of 3 head coaches to win a college football national championship and a Super Bowl. There's 2 other out there. Who are they? Well, we'll think about that one here.
Yeah, to win a Super Bowl and a
Super Bowl and a national championship in college.
Okay.
2 of them. So, all right, Bill, let's talk about what you got coming up, because it's a cool event happening at the Carroll High Ballard game coming up on the 26th of this month.
Yeah, it's a chance to kind of bring back some memories from the past. I hope we have good weather that night, and hope we have a nice turnout of fans and a chance for people to see people. It's called the Carroll High School Foundation Celebrity Shootout. And at halftime of the boys' game, we'll have 2 former Tigers come back, and they're going to, as old Boston Celtic Bill Russell would say, they're going to try to make buckets.
All right.
It's all about buckets.
And those buckets are going to earn cash, right, for the CHS Foundation?
The buckets will earn cash for the foundation, and like you say, it's a chance to bring back some former Tigers, and the 2 that we have this year, Kim Beckman, in high school. She was a 1986 graduate, scored over 1,000 points for the Tigers. Today, she is Kim Renning. And then also Dean Onken, 1975 graduate. And like I say, they both scored over 1,000 points, went on to college careers. Kim went up to BV and played 4 years up there. Dean played 2 years over at Boone Junior College and then transferred out to Wayne State in Nebraska, and both of them had stellar careers in college. And I know they both can shoot the ball, and they have shot the ball since. And like I told them, practice so you can make some buckets.
Yeah. So what are they going to be shooting now?
Okay. We're going to give them good chances to make money. United Bank of Iowa is sponsoring this, and each of them will take 5 free throws. A made free throw is worth $25. They each get 5 3-pointers. A 3-pointer is worth $50. And then they get 2 chances from midcourt. Each will get 2 chances to make one. So I hope each person makes one, but that's worth $100 if they make that. So we hope they make buckets and make a lot of cash for the Carroll High Foundation that night.
Now, the folks that are in attendance or anybody out here listening right now can go to your Facebook page and they can help pledge money to help raise that amount. Right.
Yeah. If a fan, somebody wants to pledge any amount towards any made basket. Somebody might say, hey, I remember Dean playing. I'll pledge $5 towards every basket he makes. They can go to Facebook and search out Carroll High Foundation, and there'll be a link on there to fill out a pledge form. In fact, that form might be, I think Katie Cruz might be putting that up right now as we speak. And that night we'll have some pledge forms there at the
Hey, just pass the bucket, man. Say, hey, next one, let's throw it in the bucket.
Yeah, that's a good idea too.
Yeah,
we'll do that. We'll get Jeff out there at halftime and carry that. just no Nebraska logo on it, okay?
It's the only buckets I have.
He's raising money for the Nebraska NIL. So
Yes.
don't be fooled by that.
Already gave. Bill, talk about when the deadline is. Can people donate or pledge online like while these two are shooting? Can they still throw in pledges afterwards?
Probably, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Just
so after it's done, if somebody says, you know what, I want to, that's pretty cool, I want to donate, they're able to do that?
Yeah, you bet.
So you had both these kids in high school, right?
No. I moved. We moved here right after Dean. We moved here in '80, so 5 years after. But Dean was one of the first people I met when I moved to town, and since then we played a lot of basketball together. A lot of weekend men's tournaments, different places. And
how's his 3 looking these days?
His 3, Dean can shoot the 3.
Really?
Dean can shoot the 3.
Does he play at the rec center in that noon group?
Not so much at noon. We usually play Monday nights, Wednesday nights, and some weekends, and we play over in the park. And he's coming off a little ankle injury and surgery, so he's rehabbing, but. I think he'll be ready to go.
And Kim, Marcus is just out there training Kim, right? She's
I hope
like Rocky style, got Eye of the Tiger in the background.
Right.
So this is going to be a fun time. Once again, it is the January 26th. It's at the halftime of the Carroll Ballard boys game.
Right.
Okay. Dean Onken, class of 75. Kim Renning, or formerly known as Kim Beckman, class of 86, going to be shooting for some money for the Carroll High School Foundation. That's a pretty cool idea.
Well, it should be interesting. It's going to be fun, and I want to thank United Bank of Iowa for supporting it, because I had no idea, but they jumped on board, and appreciate them.
Yeah, that's great stuff.
Bill, how tough was it to choose? You and I and John were talking with Casey here as well before the show. There's so many great players that have come through Carroll Community. It's something you guys are looking to continue, and this may become a tradition of doing this. But how hard was it to settle on those 2 for this first year?
I got a big list established, and it was tough. It was tough. Basically, it kind of come down to, hey, like I say, I met Dean, and I knew he had a 50-point ball game, and those are hard to come by. So we'll go with Dean. And Kim was in the 6-on-6 era,
right?
And I went up and watched a few of her games at BV, and I thought, hey, let's. And plus, she's a teacher right now, so that makes it a little more interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we got 2 great ones, and selection for the future, we've got no shortage of names.
Yeah, I was just going to say there's a lot of different things you can do with this in the future.
And you know, I know he wants to have one of those nights where the sportscasters can shoot. And I haven't seen him play yet. So I don't know.
I haven't picked up a basketball and shot in years. I don't think I want to embarrass myself.
He answers the question. He's not on the list.
He claims he could dunk in high school.
Yeah, not anymore. I can't touch the net. But I could dunk in high school, yes.
All right, so that is the event going on right now. We're going to get on to some other sports here in a minute. We're going to take a quick break. It's KCIM Sports Rewind with our special guest, Bill Baddley, today. Once again, we'll return after this.
As the athletes at your house prepare for hard work and fun of the season, remember that St. Anthony Rehab Services provides physical therapy for any sports injury that may sideline your member of the team. Sports injuries can plague kids of all ages and keep them from playing the sport they love. Athletes will be under the direct supervision of a certified and licensed healthcare professional in the newly renovated sports performance facility. If an injury is keeping your athlete out of the game, call St. Anthony Rehabilitation Services at 794-5000 for sports injury and treatment rehab.
The house band, Bat Authority, bringing us back into KCIM Sports Rewind. And we're going to remind you of our trivia question. Pete Carroll, one of 3 head coaches to win a college national championship and a Super Bowl. There's 2 others, and that's our trivia question we're going to answer here coming up in just a little bit. Let's talk about this whole college situation. I mean, with all the Nick Saban kind of started the dominoes when he retired from Alabama. Crazy, the numbers that everybody thinks they see a college football coach's salary and say, whoa, man, they're vastly overpaid. Nick Saban made such an impact at Alabama. They said that their actual school enrollment went from the time he took over 25,000 to 40,000, and most of those were out-of-state tuition, so bringing in much more money there. The town of Tuscaloosa went from 89,000 people to 110,000 people.
Yeah.
The economic impact of that guy and his program was just immense.
Billions.
How do you even follow that? I don't even know.
Caleb DeBoer gets that opportunity.
South Dakota native, by the way.
Yeah.
He is.
He won 3 NAIA titles at the University of South Dakota, Sioux Falls.
Bringing the kid from Iowa and BV with him as the O coordinator, from what I understand.
Grubbs, I know a lot of Iowa guys. A lot of people are upset about that, but because it sounds like Paul Chryst isn't even going to come as the OC anymore either.
Really?
He's staying at Texas as an analyst.
Okay.
So that'll be interesting to see.
Wow.
Okay.
Ferentz has only got a couple weeks to decide on who his OC is because he said he'd have it by the end of January.
Well, John, I sent you that thing yesterday. Where was it that he was headed? Was it Dallas?
Oh, yeah.
There was a thing out on Twitter yesterday about, how Jerry Jones keeps messing up, the Cowboys because he doesn't get, offensive coordinators and head coaches that are, innovative and stuff, and went on this long rant, and then it says, here's who he needs, and it was a picture of Kirk and Brian.
I saw right away after Saban retired, somebody posted on Twitter, and it was the only man that can save the Alabama team after Nick Saban leaves, and it was Brian Ferentz as the new head coach. So.
that poor guy is going to take a beating.
It is bad because he is a great coach.
Yes.
He's a great offensive line coach.
Yeah.
Now, Bill, you're a Hawkeye fan. What do you think about that whole situation?
Well, it's amazing what they've been able to do just with the defensive side of the football.
No kidding.
It's kept them in games, and it's won them games.
Yep. Defense and special teams.
Yeah. And you just wonder, what it would have been like the past couple of years if that offense would have been able to generate points game in and game out.
Yep.
Not that the records are bad, because they had great. Most teams would take that record at a drop of the dime, But
it's so frustrating to watch, isn't it? Because you're like, if we just make this adjustment, I mean, how good could this team be?
How many more years does a Phil Parker hang on?
I mean, at some point you think, what else do we have to do here? We got to get some help on the other side of the football.
Yeah. Yeah. Phil is how old? I mean, you guys are Iowa fans. You guys,
I don't know. I know he's been there a long time.
Late 60s, early 70s. Is he getting up into that age range now?
I'm not sure about his
I wouldn't.
age, but
I wouldn't know either.
Okay.
But you got to remember, age. There have been a lot of coaches that keep going.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. I just wonder if he's early 70s or whatever now. Does he have 5 more years? Does he want to go 5 more years? How long does he want to go? That'll be the question. So.
But I bet he can.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got a lot of energy, and he's upbeat, and
probably the best D coordinator in the country right now.
Yeah.
It just stuns me. You could have that good of a defense, but that offense was so, I want to say, antiquated.
He's only 60.
It was so unimaginative.
I just looked him up. He's only 60, so he's got.
Oh, really?
He's got at least 15 years left.
So sorry, Phil.
Yeah.
We didn't mean to retire you.
No, absolutely. Yeah. So he'd been there so long, I thought he was older than what he is.
Mm-hmm. So that's interesting. But who would you like to see? Do you have any names? Do you have anybody that,
Just like to have somebody who will throw the ball 15, 20 yards up the field instead of just to the sideline all the time. And for several years, the passing game wasn't really there, but the running game was there.
Right.
And they would have an offensive back, one or two get hurt, and it didn't matter who they put in there, they'd still be able to run the ball. And I think they've lost a little edge on the offensive line past couple of years too.
So I think a lot of people wanted Paul Chryst because even though you look at Wisconsin, he went down every year he was there. They still had dominant running backs, and it didn't matter who was in the backfield. Right. They ran the ball really well with great offensive line play.
They dominated up front.
Yeah.
Was he he in the Ron Dane area and Aaron all that?
No, he'd have been. I'm trying to think of the guy.
Running back from San Diego.
Yeah. He spent, 5 years at Wisconsin as the head coach, if I remember correct.
Yeah. Took over after Alvarez, didn't he?
Yes. No. That would have been, he's at Illinois now. Why am I drawing a blank? The old Hawkeye. Bielema. There you go. And then you had another guy that was there for like a year or a couple of years and didn't do real well, and then they brought Chryst in. Chryst went over to Pittsburgh and was the head coach at Pittsburgh for a couple of years before coming back to Wisconsin and stuff. But I think he spent 5 years there. He would have come in, I think, after Monty Ball, if I remember
He would have
correctly.
coached Melvin Gordon.
There's the kid from San Diego.
Maybe Jonathan Taylor early.
Jonathan Taylor early, I think. Yeah, those were the two really good running backs I think he had there. Yeah.
So what's the Big Ten going to look like next year? The Big Ten West. It's not going to be the Big Ten West anymore, but you got USC coming in. You got everything else coming in. Are you, as an Iowa Hawkeye fan, really looking forward to that? Or do you think it's kind of, just diluting the Big Ten?
It gives you coast-to-coast exposure.
Right.
For good or bad.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of that expansion. I like what the Big Ten had. It kind of went too far to Rutgers for me, but you can live with it. But now it's I know Jeff is excited because the Huskers got USC and UCLA next year back to back.
Welcome to our life in the Big Ten.
Cupcakes there back to back.
Yeah.
To me, it's a matter of how long does a team like Rutgers and Maryland last in the Big Ten before they try to cast them off? Because they're paying them a lot of money. USC, UCLA, well, they're going to get full shares. Those two. It's Washington and Oregon. They're going to get like half shares of the TV revenue coming in. It's like, at what point do they go, yeah, Rutgers, you're really not cutting it for us. You're not deserving of that full share when Ohio State, Michigan, and those teams are carrying the Big Ten.
I wonder how long it's going to be before, the top 50 programs or so, whatever the number will be, just breaks away. And starts their own thing, and you get the national championship between just them and then everybody else. It's kind of like, I still call it Division I AA because I can never remember, the name change from years ago. But but where they created another whole division that's above the UNIs of the world that's for everybody that's left over. The scary thing is, we've got their banner and flag because we're an affiliate. The last time I saw a list of the top 50 schools that would break away, Iowa State was not in that list. And that's a scary thing, that we could lose a school right here in this state as being one of those schools that gets pushed into the second tier of programs.
A lot of schools are in that right now. I mean, Washington State, Oregon State going through that right now. They're going to have to join the Mountain West, where they were members of the Pac-12.
Right.
I mean, they were part of a power conference. They're getting just booted out, just forgotten about.
Well, and Stanford and those guys in Cal go out to the ACC, and now you want Florida State, North Carolina, Clemson, all those guys went out of the ACC. If they leave the ACC, what's the ACC got?
Exactly.
I've been saying since all this started, we just need to throw everybody in and realign them again by regions, where you're at geographically.
Yeah. I like the geographic part of it. I do. I will admit, even I'm in the Big Ten, it's different for me playing Rutgers and Maryland. The Penn State thing, I grew up playing Penn State as a Nebraska fan. We played them a lot in non-conference games. So but Purdue, Indiana, I still don't get thrilled in playing those. As an old Big 8 guy and Big 12 guy, I still miss the localness of playing Kansas and Kansas State and Colorado and Oklahoma State every year, just Iowa State, because they were all drivable games, I mean, and not that I drove out to Purdue a year ago, so it's not like Purdue's not a drivable game, but man, driving, from Nebraska to Kansas or Nebraska to Kansas State or Nebraska to Iowa State's a heck of a lot different than driving from Nebraska to Purdue or Nebraska to, though it's getting tougher. It's getting tougher, and I like to be able to go to games. It's just getting tougher to do.
See, a lot of fans, go to the streaming the other night. They put one of those playoff games on Peacock.
Right.
The streaming, and not a lot of people had Peacock.
I'm not going to pay for it.
Yeah, and but back in the day, you got your 3 channels. Yep. Whatever they were showing. That was it. Now you can watch any game anywhere, anytime. That's the value of streaming and all that. But now when you suddenly throw in a Peacock in that situation or Amazon Prime, people suddenly hate it now.
Well, I understand the argument of I have satellite. I already pay to have ABC, NBC, Fox, and CBS on my satellite. I'm not going to pay again to be able to watch a football game that should be on a channel that I already have. Yeah, so I'm not going to, you will never see me. I miss the Nebraska games because the Big Ten has that same agreement. So every school in the Big Ten has, a couple of basketball games and one football game on Peacock. I will not subscribe. It's only $5.99 a month, but I'm not going to do it. No. I already spent enough money to be able to watch all this stuff. Give it to me on what I'm already paying for.
Yeah, I'm a South Dakota fan, so I have to subscribe to the Summit League,
right? Yeah,
ESPN Plus and all this stuff, and so it's costing me about $15 a month.
I have ESPN Plus and all that stuff already. I have too many apps that I'm paying for on my phone already, so I'm not going to subscribe to another one.
All right, so trivia question time. Pete Carroll, one of 3 head coaches to win a college football national championship and a Super Bowl.
I'm not going to answer because I have them
got
both.
The question.
Yeah.
Donald, you text me. You have the answer. I think I made this way too easy, so we're going to put it on Casey and Bill here.
I've already told you. I don't know because
they both coached the same NFL team, and they were back-to-back coaches in the 90s.
Yeah, see, I wouldn't know. Like I said, all the college coaches that I remember going to the NFL nowadays have not been good.
Right. Most of them haven't been over the years.
Well, you said you were born, 1991?
Yeah, I was born in 98.
98?
Yeah.
So this would have been a few years before you were born.
Yeah, see, I wouldn't know.
Yeah, I forget about that.
Does that help you, Bill?
No, the only name I come up with or thinking is Jimmy Johnson.
Jimmy Johnson is one. And then the other guy followed him at Dallas.
Okay.
He was a former Oklahoma college football coach back in the 70s and 80s.
Carried guns through the airport.
Yes, Barry Switzer.
Barry Switzer, there you go. Those are the 2. Pete Carroll, Barry Switzer, and Jimmy Johnson. And Barry Switzer, man, what a disaster.
Hey, he took over for Jimmy Johnson and took him to another Super Bowl and won one.
Yeah, if it weren't for Jimmy Johnson's team.
I know. I know. But he makes the list.
Yeah. But anyway,
he was a great college coach.
Do you guys see Bill Belichick going anywhere? 71 years old. Do you see any team hiring him?
Interviewed with Atlanta yesterday.
Did he?
So, yeah.
I think he'll be back coaching because I think he's one of those guys that he loves the sport. He loves coaching. He loves the competition.
Yep.
He might be one of those guys that loves practice more than the games even.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know if you'll see him have control of player personnel anymore, but I could see him being just a coach somewhere. I don't know. With the way New England struggled to be able to keep talent, bring talent in these last few years, I just don't know if he'll be able to get a job where they let him be in charge of player personnel again. But I think he'll coach somewhere.
Yeah, I think that went too far down under his after Tom Brady left.
Yeah.
It really kind of just sank.
We may realize that Tom may have carried some of those teams that didn't have a lot of talent.
No kidding. Considering Tom went to the Buccaneers and immediately won a Super Bowl there.
Yes.
So, all right, so the NFL playoffs are coming up. We'll do a little predicting here. Texans-Ravens coming up next Saturday. That's an interesting game. Ravens just lit up the Browns. Yeah. Or the Texans did. Yeah. So the Ravens got the bye. Ravens, are they for real?
I think so.
I think so.
I think so.
I think they're for real. But the last time they had the number 1 seed at home, they didn't do very good.
No, but I think they're a more mature team now. I think Lamar Jackson is a different player, knowledge-wise, of the game than he was 4 or 5 years ago.
Won an MVP last time. They had the number 1 seed. More than likely, the odds runner for the MVP this year.
Yeah, but I think I just think he's at a different level mentally as a quarterback than he was then. So
here's one. Packers at the 49ers. That's next Saturday night. Packers just demolished the Cowboys, and I can't thank them enough for that because I cannot stand the Cowboys. Bill's with me on that one. But, boy, that Jordan Love looks dang good, doesn't he?
That's going to be a super game to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's eyeballs are going to be fixed on that.
I think if you're San Francisco, you have to be nervous.
You're right.
I think you have to be nervous.
You're looking at a club coming in that's hot and playing well.
7 of their last 9, I think they've won. And the other thing, I'm not trying to say anything bad. Sorry, Casey, but Brock Purdy didn't look great the last few games of the regular season. He had that 4 interception game, so he's going to have to flip things here with his time off, I think, for them to be able to make the run. They're certainly capable of it, and he's a quarterback I think is capable of it.
Green Bay 7-2 in their last 9 games. Jordan Love 18-1 touchdown interception ratio.
Yep.
It's a big part why.
But when does that collapse? You always have guys that go on that kind of a run all of a sudden have one of those games.
But this is the type of defense that it could happen to.
Yep,
Absolutely. The 49ers defense.
Yeah, Niners defense, that, I think, is better.
Yeah,
so I would give them the edge, and then plus they're at home. Buccaneers at the Lions coming up next Sunday. That's an interesting matchup. Buccaneers, again, Bill, one of those hot teams, taking on another team, the Lions, that just put it all together this year.
Sentimental. You got to pull for the Lions. I do. I remember as a kid, I remember those Thanksgiving games filmed or on TV from Tiger Stadium, and it was cold, just like the weather we're having now. And
one of my favorite players ever, still Barry Sanders. How can you not like Detroit? He's not there, of course, anymore. But you know, you gotta. I've always wanted Detroit to be good because Barry Sanders never got the opportunity to be on really good Detroit fans. Now, you guys are going to laugh at me, but Tampa Bay's got 2 Nebraska guys that are really good on that team, and Trey Palmer and Levante David. So it's hard for me to root against them, but there's that part of me that's pulling for Detroit. I'd love to see Detroit in the Super Bowl. I think that would be really cool.
That would be. By the way, the Amazon Prime, I think, is where the Barry Sanders special is. Look that up really sometime, man. Just to watch that guy run was insane. Yeah. So, I give the edge to the Lions there. Buccaneers are going to, they're going to have a down game sometime.
Yeah.
Last game is the Bills at hosting the Chiefs. The Chiefs have to go on the road. Patrick Mahomes, I don't think he's played a road playoff game.
He hasn't.
He's been at Arrowhead Stadium. I find that stunning that they've never had to go on the road.
And Buffalo's scary. I don't know what you guys think, but what was it? 10 weeks into the season, everybody was like, they're done. They fired their OC, and all of a sudden they got it going. Josh Allen was turning the ball over all the time, and now they're playing probably as well as anybody in the NFL. So but the Chiefs are still the Chiefs. That defense is really good, and if they can force Josh Allen into some turnovers, that should be a good game.
Go ahead, Bill.
Wonder what the weather conditions will be.
Yeah.
But both teams are accustomed to playing outside, but I just go with home team on that. I mean, I think that's toss.
Did you see Mahomes' helmet crack the other day?
I'm glad I didn't have to play in that weather. Oh, I don't like cold weather, and that would have been miserable.
Casey?
I just wonder if how the Chiefs' offensive line can hold up, because I think the Bills' defensive line is really underrated.
Yep.
And I think since they fired their OC, they've led the league in rushing. Yep. The Bills have, and I think that's going to be a big factor. James Cook, younger brother of Dalvin Cook, is going to. I think they could have a big game, because I think if there's one area the Chiefs have really lacked this year is probably rush defense. So.
Right.
Dream matchup for the Super Bowl. I got the Bills and the Lions. I mean, how can you not want to see that?
Yeah, I'd be okay with that.
Brock Purdy fans.
Yeah, now that my Dolphins are out of it, I'd be okay with that. I'd be okay with San Francisco getting in. But, I'd really like to see Detroit, and the Bills would be fine.
How about you, Bill?
I'd love to see that Detroit
and the Buffalo Bills. Casey?
Detroit, and I really don't care as long as it's not the Chiefs.
See, I just made some friends around here.
I said earlier on the air today, I said, how can you cheer against the Lions? I mean, I'm a Vikings fan. I can't stand the Packers or the Bears.
Right.
But the Lions have been the losers for so long.
Yep.
It's like, I don't want to see them win a Super Bowl before the Vikings do, but you know what? I think maybe I'd be okay with that.
I can't think of his name, but I really like their coach.
Campbell.
Campbell. He coaches with such an intensity and such a passion and such a love, and it's fun to see,
Yeah,
So,
they're not making a stupid mistake. Well, they got their stupid mistakes out last year and are correcting for some of that this year.
yeah, they still win some close ones. That's the scary thing is you don't always win the close ones, but they tend to win a lot of them.
Yeah. So again, January 26th, Carroll Ballard, middle of the boys game. You can have that celebrity shootout bill. Dean Onken, class of 75, Kim Beckman or Kim Renning, class of 86. The big shootout brought to you by UBI. Raise a lot of money for the CHS Foundation, and good luck with that, Bill.
Well, thanks. Thanks a lot.
All right, Bill Baddley joining us here this morning on KCIM Sports Rewind.